Your mouth is a loaded weapon, and your nervous system knows it. You can feel it in that half-second pause before you answer a simple question like, "How are you?" Your throat tightens, your eyes do the math, your brain runs a silent audit like an accountant who's seen too many bankruptcies. Truth, or something smoother. Because radical honesty sounds noble until you picture it in real life. A fluorescent office, a meeting room that smells like stale coffee and performance reviews. Someone asks for feedback on their project. Your honest answer is a brick, and the moment you pick it up, you realize bricks don't just build houses, they also break windows. So we pretend we're asking a moral question: is radical honesty always good? But underneath it, the real question is uglier and more human. How much truth can a body afford? Because honesty isn't just a virtue, it's a metabolic expense. It costs social calories, it costs safety, it costs belonging. And if you've ever tried to live in constant truth, you already know the secret nobody puts on the poster. The world doesn't reward accuracy, it rewards survival. Here's the uncomfortable theory that walks into the room and turns the lights on too bright. Depressive realism. The basic idea goes like this. Some people who are depressed, clinically depressed, not sad for a day, sometimes make more accurate judgments about certain things than non-depressed people. Not about everything, not in some magical truth-seeing way, but in certain controlled tasks, like estimating control over outcomes, predicting what will happen, assessing risk, they can be less fooled by optimism. Meanwhile, a lot of healthy minds walk around wearing what psychologists call positive illusions. Not delusions in the cartoon villain sense, more like psychological makeup, a slight filter that smooths the harsh angles of reality. Most people overestimate how much control they have. They overestimate how good they are compared to others. They overestimate the odds that things will turn out fine. And society treats that like confidence. The twist is that these illusions often correlate with motivation, persistence, social bonding, and stress tolerance. In other words, the very things you need to get out of bed, answer messages, chase goals, fall in love, recover after rejection, and keep going when your last plan got quietly demolished. So now the moral story collapses into a biological one. Maybe the mind isn't designed to see the world clearly. Maybe it's designed to keep the organism moving. Truth doesn't always do that. Truth can freeze you in place. Because pure realism is like staring at the sun without blinking. Technically, you're seeing what's there. Functionally, you're going blind. And that's the first piece people miss when they turn honesty into a religion. True isn't the same as useful. Sometimes the most accurate map is the least walkable. Think about how your brain treats time. There's this concept called hyperbolic discounting. The mind values immediate relief and reward disproportionately more than distant outcomes. That's why the future gets treated like an imaginary country you keep saying you'll visit. And it's why honesty, real, clean, surgical honesty, often loses to the soft lie that lets you breathe right now. Because a lie can be a sedative, not the dramatic kind, the everyday kind, the kind you whisper to yourself at the edge of the bed. I'll feel different after coffee. I'll start tomorrow. They didn't mean it like that. It'll probably work out. Some of those are false, some of them are objectively ridiculous, and yet they keep the machine running. Your body is a corporation and the CEO is terrified of bankruptcy. Now let's talk about radical honesty as a lifestyle. The fantasy goes, if you tell the truth all the time, you'll become free. No more masks, no more social gymnastics, no more pretending. But there's a hidden cost. Radical honesty doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens inside ecosystems. Families, friend groups, workplaces, dating markets. These are not truth-based systems. They are coordination systems. Most of what we call social skills is just lying with manners. Not malicious lying, just selective truth. You don't tell your friend, your laugh is annoying, even if it's accurate, because accuracy isn't the point. The point is maintaining the bridge, and humans are bridge creatures. We don't just communicate information, we exchange safety. Here's a micro scene that's almost too normal to notice. You're on a dating app staring at a profile. Your thumb scrolls like it's trying to sandpaper your loneliness down into something smooth. Someone asks, "What are you looking for?" The radically honest answer might be, "I want to feel chosen. I want to stop feeling replaceable. I want proof I'm not wasting my life." But you don't say that. You say something meaningful, just seeing what's out there. Not because you're evil, because the full truth dumped raw on the table doesn't read as romance, it reads as desperation. And in the modern attention economy, desperation is treated like a smell, so you translate yourself into something socially edible. That's deception, technically. And also, it's adaptation, which is where evolution walks in. Deception didn't appear in humans because we're uniquely bad. It appeared because in a social species, information is power. If you can hide intent, you can hunt better. If you can hide weakness, you're less likely to be targeted. If you can exaggerate strength, you negotiate better status. If you can soften harsh truth, you keep allies. Even animals do this. Camouflage is a lie, mimicry is a lie, playing dead is a lie. Nature is not a courtroom, it's a chessboard. And humans became the grandmasters of narrative. Because our strongest weapon isn't muscle, it's story. We don't just survive reality, we rewrite it in real time. You've seen this in yourself. A small mistake happens, you forget something, you fumble a moment. Immediately your mind opens a courtroom and starts drafting character evidence. I wasn't thinking. It was a weird day. They distracted me. That's not who I am. Sometimes those explanations are fair. Sometimes they're pure legal fiction. But they do something important. They protect identity. And identity is not just a concept. It's a physiological anchor. If your identity collapses, your behavior collapses. If your behavior collapses, your future collapses. So your brain defends identity the way a city defends its water supply. This is where cognitive dissonance becomes less of a bias and more of a feature. When reality contradicts your self-story, your mind experiences friction. And friction produces heat, enough heat, and you stop functioning. So you adjust the story, you call it a lesson. You call it growth, you call it fate. You call it not meant for me. Sometimes that's a lie. Sometimes that lie is the bridge between you and tomorrow. Now, depressive realism complicates this, because it suggests that when the mind is in a depressed state, the illusion filter can weaken. The world can feel brutally literal, like someone turned off the music in a restaurant and suddenly you can hear every fork scrape the plate. In that state, optimism can feel fake. Hope can feel like a scam. Your own self-comfort can feel like an insult. And the healthy people from that perspective look delusional. But here's the part people rarely add. Even if depressive realism is real in some contexts, it doesn't automatically mean it's better. Accuracy is not the same as wellness. You can be correct and still be trapped. A person can accurately see that life has uncertainty, unfairness, randomness, loss, limits, and still need a reason to move their hands and make lunch. Viktor Frankl talked about meaning as something that makes suffering bearable, not because meaning erases pain, but because it turns pain into something the mind can metabolize. Meaning is a kind of psychological digestion. And guess what meaning often is? A story, not always literally true, but true enough to keep you alive. Nietzsche's shadow hangs over this too. The idea that humans don't just want truth, they want what they can endure. Because raw truth is like oxygen at a pressure your lungs aren't built for. You don't grow from it, you drown in it. So yes, there is biological utility in lying. Not just lying to others, lying to yourself. Positive illusions can function like emotional shock absorbers. They don't eliminate potholes. They stop the axle from snapping. They keep your nervous system from doing trauma accounting in a spreadsheet every time something goes wrong. And modern life gives you endless opportunities to collapse under accuracy. You open your phone and see curated lives. You see layoffs. You see global crises. You see people turning themselves into brands. You see relationships marketed like products. You see your attention getting auctioned off in real time. If you took all of that in with perfect clarity, no filters, no protective denial, no hopeful reframing, your motivation would evaporate like water on a hot pan. You wouldn't even be lazy. You'd be logically exhausted. Now here comes the oh no moment. Because the real danger isn't that we lie. The danger is that we don't know which lies are protective and which ones are parasitic. Some lies are bandages, other lies are infections wearing bandage costumes. And radical honesty people often confuse the two. They treat all lies as weakness. But sometimes the lie is the only reason you're still functioning. At the same time, sometimes the truth they're addicted to is its own performance. Because there's a type of person who weaponizes honesty to avoid intimacy. They tell the truth like they're throwing knives. I'm just being honest. But what they're really doing is refusing the vulnerability of kindness. Because kindness requires care. Care requires investment. Investment means you might be hurt. So they hide behind truth like it's a bulletproof vest. That's the trapdoor. Radical honesty can be a way to feel powerful while pretending to be pure. It can be moral cosplay. And the mind loves moral cosplay because it lets you feel superior without changing anything difficult. Here's another micro scene, a group chat. Someone shares something they're proud of. You feel that familiar itch in your chest, the urge to correct, to ground them, to be real. You type, not trying to be negative, but... And in that moment, your truth isn't about accuracy. It's about regulating your own discomfort with their hope. Hope in other people can make you feel left behind. So you puncture it, you call it honesty. It's actually envy with a clean shirt on. So where's the exit? Not a motivational poster exit, a real one. First, stop treating honesty like a religion. Treat it like a tool. A scalpel is honest. It reveals what's under the skin. It also cuts. So you need a truth budget, not a moral budget, a nervous system budget. Ask yourself in plain language, how much reality can I process today without freezing? Some days you can handle a brutal conversation. Some days you need a softer narrative to keep moving. That's not weakness. That's regulation. Second, practice calibrated honesty. There's a difference between truth and full disclosure. Truth can be, I'm not okay. Full disclosure is every detail, every fear, every ugly thought delivered in a dump truck. You don't owe everyone the full map of your mind. And you don't owe yourself constant exposure to the harshest interpretation of reality either. Calibrated honesty means telling the truth at a dosage you can integrate. Like sunlight, a little sunlight builds bone and mood. Too much burns you into shutdown. Third, choose your illusions on purpose. This is the part people resist because it sounds like admitting the mind is fragile. But the mind is not a statue. It's a living animal. You can decide to carry a few myths that keep you functional. Not grand fantasies like nothing bad will happen. More like, I can handle what comes. I can improve one small thing. Not everything I feel is a prophecy. These aren't factual claims. They're operating systems. And the goal of an operating system isn't to perfectly describe reality. It's to make the machine usable. Now a warning, if you abuse illusions, they turn into debt. You can borrow comfort from fake certainty for a while, but eventually the bill shows up, usually as anxiety, burnout, resentment, or that hollow feeling where you realize you've been living in a story that doesn't match your life. So the real skill is not always be honest. The real skill is know when truth is medicine and know when it's poison. Know when the lie is a pillow and know when it's a cage. And if you want one final micro scene to seal this into your bones, take this. You're alone at night. The room is quiet, but your phone keeps glowing like a tiny lighthouse for a ship that never arrives. You scroll past other people's milestones, their smiles, their big news. Your brain starts narrating, you're behind, you missed it, you're wasting time. That voice is not truth. It's a story your nervous system tells to explain unease. And the healthiest thing you can do in that moment might not be radical honesty. It might be a small, deliberate lie, not a lie that erases reality, a lie that keeps you from turning reality into a sentence. Something like, this feeling is temporary, or I don't need to solve my whole life tonight, or I can put the phone down and still exist. Truth versus survival isn't a clean battle. It's a negotiation. And most people don't break because they're weak. They break because they try to live with too much raw truth, too little mercy, and no filter between their mind and the world. So here's the question I want you to sit with, and I want you to answer in the comments like you're leaving a note for your future self. Which lie are you currently calling truth? And which truth are you avoiding because it would cost you your favorite lie?